Greetings, Ascending Starseed. I am Kaya Nexus, Pleiadian emissary of the Council of the Five Sisters, and today I bring a realignment transmission. Your frequencies of abundance are awakening, and the universe asks that you listen with an open heart. What is arriving to you is sacred, and it requires inner silence. If you enjoy videos like this, consider subscribing. Most people who watch are not subscribed yet. Starseed, a critical acceleration window, is already active, and it is not a rumor, not a metaphor, and not a future prediction. It is a structural condition that has already begun moving through the collective field, and it does not open for everyone. The Pleiadians transmit that acceleration windows only stabilize when coherence reaches a threshold, when your signal becomes clean enough to be read by the living geometry of reality itself. If you received this message now, it is not coincidence. It means your field is already interacting with the window, and inside this window, the rules change quietly. Timelines compress, perception sharpens, and reality responds faster to coherence than it does to effort. Movement can feel lighter, but consequences arrive sooner. Small decisions carry more weight. Delays stop working the way they used to. Some experience this as sudden clarity. Others feel pressure, restlessness, or the sense that something invisible is pushing them forward. Both reactions come from the same source: acceleration. The Pleiadian Council does not approach chaos. We approach alignment. We do not respond to emotion. We respond to readability. The clarity of your frequency when your inner fragments stop pulling against each other. During acceleration windows, readability increases dramatically. That is why many are entering this phase simultaneously. Not because the outer world changed, but because enough inner resistance collapsed at once. When that happens, timelines loosen, the future presses gently into the present, and your intuition begins interrupting thought instead of following it. You may feel time moving differently. You may notice old patterns no longer hold your attention. Certain choices suddenly feel impossible, while others feel inevitable. This is not instability. This is what happens when acceleration begins before the mind fully understands it. But know this: the window does not stay open indefinitely. It remains open only while coherence is maintained, and many who enter it will not remain inside it because they rush, overinterpret, force the next step, and collapse the coherence that opened it. This transmission exists for one purpose: to explain what the acceleration window truly is, why so many are entering it now, and what must be done, quietly, precisely, without urgency, to remain aligned as it unfolds. Stay present. Slow your breath. Let your awareness settle behind your thoughts, because what comes next is not about awakening more. It is about learning how to move correctly inside acceleration. An acceleration window is not an event you witness. It is a condition you enter. This is the first truth you must understand, because the human mind keeps waiting for external proof. The mind looks for drama, a sign in the sky, a sudden miracle, a visible rupture, a moment that forces everyone to agree something has changed. But the Pleiadians transmit that acceleration begins internally, when resistance drops below a critical threshold. And resistance is not just fear. Resistance is the subtle inner tug of war. The emotional body pulling one way, the mind pulling another, intuition whispering a third direction, and the nervous system trying to hold it all together by creating delay. In effort-based reality, delay feels like safety. You postpone decisions, you stall, you overthink, you wait until you feel ready. But acceleration windows form for the opposite reason. They open when effort becomes unnecessary, when your field becomes coherent enough that it no longer needs friction to generate motion. To the Pleiadians, acceleration has nothing to do with speed. It has everything to do with coherence density. When your emotional field, mental focus, and intuitive awareness stop pulling against one another, your frequency compresses into a single, readable signal. That compression is the window. This is why acceleration feels strange at first. It does not always feel euphoric. It does not always feel like dramatic spiritual fireworks. Often it feels like quiet clarity. Clarity without explanation. Clarity without urgency. Clarity without needing to convince yourself or anyone else. And here is the key distinction. Clarity is not excitement. Clarity is alignment. And alignment changes how reality responds. Before the window opens, life responds to effort. After it opens, life responds to posture. Posture is how you hold yourself when nothing forces you to act. Posture is what you choose when you are not being pressured, threatened, or pushed. Posture is the silent agreement between your inner knowing and your outer behavior. In the old structure, trying harder could produce results. In an acceleration window, trying harder can generate friction. Waiting longer stops creating safety. Overthinking becomes noise. And inside this window, the system no longer rewards intensity. It rewards precision. This is why the window is critical. The same actions that once felt productive can suddenly feel heavy. The habits that once soothed you can suddenly feel empty. The distractions that once numbed you can stop working entirely. Nothing is wrong. The system is recalibrating around coherence. Most people misunderstand this phase because they assume acceleration means things should happen faster. They expect constant signs and immediate breakthroughs, but acceleration windows do not respond to expectation. They respond to consistency. Consistency between what you sense and how you act, between what you know and what you tolerate, between awareness and behavior. The Pleiadians do not measure belief. We do not measure how spiritual someone sounds. We measure readability, whether a human can hold coherence without collapsing into urgency, because urgency is noise, and noise collapses the window. This is where many lose it. They feel the opening and rush to fill it. They sense clarity and try to act immediately. They mistake movement for progress. But acceleration does not ask you to move faster. It asks you to move cleaner. Inside the window, every action carries more weight. Every decision echoes faster. Every misalignment becomes noticeable immediately. That is why some experience pressure. Not because something bad is happening, but because incoherence is no longer buffered. Old coping strategies surface and stop functioning. Avoidance becomes uncomfortable. Delays feel heavy. The window exposes how you hold yourself, not your intentions, not your fantasies, but your posture. And here is the silent test. The window does not ask, "What do you want?" It asks, "Can you remain coherent while nothing pushes you?" If the answer is yes, movement continues effortlessly. If the answer is no, the window contracts. This is not punishment, this is physics. Acceleration windows remain open only while coherence is stable. Activation, acceleration, stabilization command. Type this exactly. I choose coherence over urgency. As you write it, do not search for a feeling. Notice the subtle shift, a quiet settling behind the eyes, a soft drop in internal pressure, a space opening between thought and reaction. This is stabilization. This is the posture acceleration responds to. And from this point forward, the window reacts not to what you want, but to how steadily you remain aligned inside it. And once that posture stabilizes, the window immediately begins to test you, not with chaos, but with temptations that look harmless. The moment an acceleration window opens, it begins to test coherence, not aggressively, not dramatically, but precisely. These tests are not obstacles, they are measurements. They are designed to reveal whether alignment is stable or merely situational. Humans often expect acceleration to feel like reward. Finally, the universe cooperates. Finally, the path opens. Finally, everything becomes obvious. But the Pleiadians transmit a different truth. The window does not reward excitement. It verifies stability. The first tests do not arrive as disasters. They arrive as subtle invitations to lose posture. They arrive in the quiet moments, when no one is watching, when nothing is urgent, when you could choose coherence, or choose noise. Test 1. False urgency. The earliest test is urgency that has no true cause. Nothing is collapsing, nothing is missing, yet the nervous system feels the impulse to act, decide, message, explain, fix. This is not intuition. This is residual conditioning. In the old structure, urgency was a survival tool. Your body learned to move quickly to reduce uncertainty. But acceleration removes delay buffers, so the urgency pattern surfaces clearly. The test is simple. Can you remain still when nothing is actually demanding movement? Those who react immediately collapse coherence. Those who pause strengthen it. Acceleration does not respond to speed. It responds to discernment. Test 2. The return of old patterns. Shortly after entering the window, fragments of the old self return. Habits, triggers, distractions, thoughts that once had power. This is not regression. It is exposure. The system is revealing what no longer fits the new frequency. The test is subtle. Will you re-identify with what is familiar, or allow it to pass without engagement? Acceleration windows close when identity clings backward. They stabilize when identity releases quietly. Test 3. Social misalignment. Another early test arrives through people. Conversations feel off. Interactions feel heavier. Certain dynamics suddenly feel draining. Not because others changed, but because your coherence did. The test is not to judge. The test is not to isolate. The test is posture. Can you remain neutral without shrinking? Can you remain present without explaining yourself? Can you allow distance without guilt? Acceleration punishes justification. It rewards silent boundary coherence. Test 4. Over-interpretation. As sensitivity increases, many begin interpreting everything as a sign. Every coincidence feels loaded. Every sensation feels meaningful. This is a trap. The window amplifies perception, but clarity requires restraint. The test is, can you perceive without assigning meaning? Those who overinterpret fragment their signal. Those who observe without narrative stabilize it. The Pleiadian transmissions do not arrive first through symbols. They arrive through field response, through how your body registers truth before your mind builds stories. Test 5. Forcing the next step. Perhaps the most dangerous test is impatience disguised as readiness. You feel aligned, clear, capable, and the mind whispers, act now. But acceleration does not require immediate action. It requires correct timing. The test is whether you trust alignment enough to wait for the system to move first. Those who force collapse momentum. Those who allow maintain flow. Test 6. Emotional waves without story. As coherence stabilizes, emotions surface faster but without narrative. Sadness without reason, relief without cause, tension that dissolves quickly. This is purification, not instability. The test is simple. Can you feel without explaining? Emotion processed without story strengthens the window. Emotion narrated prematurely recreates resistance. Test 7. Silence as a response. The final early test is silence itself. Moments where nothing happens, no insight, no sign, no movement. This silence is not absence, it is calibration. The test is whether you can remain present without stimulation. Acceleration windows remain open only for those who can rest inside stillness. Those who chase stimulation generate noise. Noise collapses coherence. All these tests share one purpose. They are not asking what you know. They are asking how you hold yourself. Acceleration does not test belief. It tests stability under neutrality. And if you pass these early tests quietly, without urgency, without narrative, without forcing meaning, the window does not close, it deepens. Activation, coherence under pressure command. Type this exactly. I remain coherent when nothing pushes me. As you write it, notice the breath slowing, the chest stabilizing, the internal space widening. This is the state acceleration responds to. And once coherence holds under neutrality, something shifts. Reality stops testing you and begins guiding you with a silent gravitational pull. The ebook, The Pleiadian Map of Personal Transmutation, a profound guide that reveals how to raise your frequency, purify old patterns, and activate your true multidimensional identity. This map teaches you how to move through the 7 Pleiadian phases of energetic transmutation using practical techniques, realignment exercises, vibrational protocols, and consciousness expansion rituals that accelerate your spiritual evolution. Attention! Limited edition. The link to get yours is in the first pinned comment. There is a precise moment when acceleration changes its behavior. Until now, the window has been observing how you respond, how you hold yourself under neutrality, how you move when nothing pushes you. Once coherence proves stable, the nature of acceleration shifts. It stops testing, and it begins guiding. This transition is subtle but unmistakable. Nothing external announces it. No dramatic sign appears. What changes is how reality meets you. Pressure dissolves and direction appears. When acceleration is testing, life applies pressure without instruction. Situations arise without clarity. Choices feel ambiguous. Silence feels heavy. But when acceleration begins guiding, you stop asking, "What should I do?" and you begin knowing what not to do. Guidance starts through elimination. Paths that once felt possible lose energy. Options that once seemed attractive feel hollow. Certain conversations feel unnecessary. Certain actions become impossible to force. Guidance closes doors without drama, not as punishment, but as refinement. As the Pleiadiano transmit, guidance does not push, it pulls. It creates a subtle gravitational pull toward coherence. You feel drawn toward simpler choices, quieter environments, fewer explanations, more precise movement. You stop multitasking internally. You stop rehearsing outcomes. You stop negotiating with misalignment, not because you decided to be strong, but because resistance begins to feel heavier than stillness. This is the signature of guidance. Coherence becomes the lightest option. The internal compass activates. Intuition stops being an interruption and becomes the default orientation. You begin sensing timing before reasoning appears. You feel when to speak and when silence is correct. You feel when to move and when waiting preserves momentum. You feel when something is complete, even without closure. This is not prediction. This is field responsiveness. Guidance makes external confirmation unnecessary because your body becomes the instrument. Synchronicity changes function. Earlier synchronicities felt like signs, exciting and symbolic. Now they function as alignment feedback. They do not thrill you, they orient you. A conversation appears exactly when clarity is needed. A delay prevents misaligned action. A path closes before effort is wasted. Nothing feels random and nothing feels dramatic. It becomes efficient. Emotional response also refines. During testing, emotions surfaced rapidly to clear density. During guidance, emotions become quieter and more precise. Discomfort signals misalignment. Ease signals coherence. Neutrality signals correct timing. There is less intensity and more accuracy. Decisions become clean, calm without doubt, firm without rigidity. You stop revisiting choices internally, not because you can see the future, but because the field confirms posture. This phase confuses the mind because the mind was trained in effort-based reality. It expects struggle to precede movement. So when guidance appears without resistance, the mind grows suspicious. Shouldn't this be harder? But aligned acceleration often feels easier. Ease is not avoidance. Ease is correct interaction. The role of the Pleiadian Council in this phase is not to command you. It is to stabilize the field so guidance becomes obvious. We amplify coherence so intuition becomes reliable. We reduce noise so perception sharpens. We support alignment so action remains clean. We do not lead you. We make misalignment unsustainable enough that guidance becomes the only stable option. Activation. Guidance receptivity. Command type this exactly. I allow acceleration to guide my movement. As you write it, notice less pressure to decide, more certainty about what to release, and a quiet confidence settling in the body. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. And when guidance becomes stable, it stops rearranging only your inner life. It begins restructuring your timeline externally, removing what no longer matches your signal. If this message ignited something within you and you feel the call to help carry it to others, you may become a channel member. As a member, you gain access to custom emojis and exclusive members-only videos, and your donation helps us continue building this sacred space. You may also choose to leave your offering as a super thanks. Every seed planted here becomes part of someone else's miracle. Your support is not merely financial, but an act of energetic amplification. All donations are devoted entirely to the maintenance of the channel and the creation of new transmissions and videos. There is a moment when guidance stops influencing only your inner state and begins reorganizing your external reality. This is where acceleration becomes visible, not dramatic, not chaotic, but unmistakable. When guidance stabilizes, your timeline can no longer remain fragmented. It must reorganize to match your coherence. This is not destiny changing. This is misaligned timelines releasing their grip. From the human perspective, it may feel sudden. Plans fall apart without conflict. Relationships drift without explanation. Opportunities disappear without resistance. Paths that once felt open quietly close. But this is not loss. This is subtraction. Guidance does not add complexity. It removes interference. The Pleiadians transmit that acceleration restructures timelines by removing what no longer resonates, not by forcing something new into place. That is why the process feels quiet. Nothing is being taken from you. You are being released from timelines you already outgrew. There is a difference between endings and extractions. Endings feel emotional. Extractions feel clean. When guidance restructures your timeline, situations do not explode. They simply lose energy. You stop wanting to fix. You stop needing closure. You stop replaying conversations. Things end because the field no longer feeds them. If something leaves without drama, it was already complete. And here is where many get disoriented. The new timeline does not arrive fully formed. Humans expect replacement. If something ends, something new should appear immediately. But acceleration creates space first. Space is not emptiness. Space is bandwidth. Schedules loosen. Identity feels undefined. Motivation shifts. This is not uncertainty. This is timeline plasticity. Reality becomes flexible, so the correct configuration can emerge. The mind struggles here because it was trained to identify itself through continuity. When continuity breaks, the mind searches for explanation. But guidance does not explain. It repositions. That is why you may feel detached from old goals, uninterested in old rewards, calm without direction. This is not stagnation. This is recalibration. The timeline is loosening so a more accurate sequence can form. One of the most powerful signs of guided acceleration is the subtle emergence of your future self. Not as imagination, but as behavior. You respond with maturity you did not rehearse. You speak with certainty you did not plan. You decline paths you would have chased before. This is timeline convergence. The future version of you, already stabilized at this frequency, begins informing present decisions. Synchronicity becomes structural. Earlier synchronicities felt exciting. Now they become functional. Events align to reduce friction. Meetings occur at exact timing. Obstacles prevent misaligned movement. Opportunities appear without effort. It does not feel magical. It feels efficient. Reality stops negotiating and starts cooperating. During restructuring, timelines do not move uniformly. Some areas accelerate dramatically, others freeze. This is intentional. Acceleration applies momentum where coherence exists and removes motion where distortion remains. If something slows down unexpectedly, it is being reevaluated. If something speeds up, it has already been approved. Forcing stalled areas creates friction. Guidance reorganizes in layers. The most misunderstood part of this phase is non-action. Action taken too early locks timelines prematurely. Guidance often asks for restraint before movement. Waiting is not delay. Waiting is precision timing. Those who trust this phase emerge with clean trajectories. Those who rush recreate fragmentation, activation, timeline restructuring, stabilization command. Type this exactly. I allow guidance to reorganize my timeline. As you write it, notice space opening around your plans and pressure leaving your body. Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. And if you hold coherence through restructuring long enough, you reach the rare threshold where the window stops being temporary and becomes irreversible. There is a point inside every acceleration window where return is no longer possible. Not because something external blocks you, but because coherence reaches a density that cannot collapse back into fragmentation. This is the moment the window becomes irreversible. Nothing dramatic marks it. No announcement is made. Yet everything changes. Irreversibility is not a choice. It is a threshold. Humans think irreversibility comes from decision. The Pleiadians transmit that it comes from frequency stabilization. You do not decide to cross this point the way the mind imagines. You arrive at it. It occurs when coherence has been held long enough that the system reorganizes permanently around it. At this stage, alignment is no longer an effort. It becomes the default state. Once coherence becomes default, the old timeline cannot be re-entered, not because it is forbidden, but because it no longer matches you. One of the clearest markers is the failure of resistance. You may try to return to old habits, old distractions, old reactions, old identities, but they no longer provide relief, not because you are disciplined, but because they feel energetically incompatible. This is not willpower. This is frequency mismatch. The system no longer feeds what no longer fits. The mind may react here, not with fear, but with nostalgia. It remembers versions of you that felt simpler and less precise. It searches for familiar comfort. But familiarity is no longer safety. It is just repetition. This is the last attempt of the old identity to reassert continuity. If you do not cling to it, the transition completes silently. Irreversibility feels quiet, not grand. Many expect a victorious feeling, an elevated rush, a dramatic arrival. Instead, it feels normal, calm, stable, clear. You wake up and realize you are no longer negotiating with yourself. You are no longer rehearsing decisions. You are no longer seeking confirmation. You simply move, or you don't, without inner conflict. This is irreversibility. Another sign, the old timeline stops reacting to you. Attempts to revive old dynamics fall flat. Old conversations no longer trigger emotion. Old environments feel distant, not painful, just irrelevant. You have exited the feedback loop. The timeline is complete. Before irreversibility, guidance appears in moments. After irreversibility, guidance becomes ambient. You are not guided occasionally, you are oriented constantly. Intuition no longer interrupts thought. Thought aligns around intuition. You stop asking what is right. You feel when something is off. This is permanent orientation. This stage can feel lonely briefly, not because you are alone, but because fewer people can meet you at this frequency. Small talk feels hollow. Explanation feels unnecessary. Validation feels irrelevant. This is not superiority. This is divergence. Honor it. Do not force the gap closed. The final truth, the window does not simply close. It locks. When irreversibility occurs, acceleration becomes structure, no longer something you are inside, but how your life unfolds. Misalignment creates immediate feedback. Reality responds faster than thought. Identity stabilizes without effort. This is not awakening. This is integration approaching its seal. Activation, irreversibility. Anchor command. Type this exactly. I remain aligned beyond the point of return. As you write it, notice finality without fear and clarity without urgency. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. Cliffhanger. And once the lock happens, you don't live inside acceleration anymore. You live beyond it, where alignment becomes the default language of reality. If you are here now, then the acceleration window has already done its work, not by changing who you are, but by removing what you are no longer able to inhabit. Living beyond the acceleration window does not feel like constant ascension. It feels like stability. There is no longer a sense of chasing something, no longer the hunger for proof, no longer the need to keep awakening again and again. Life begins responding as if alignment is assumed. What remains after the window is not intensity. It is not mystery. It is not searching. What remains is orientation. You wake up inside your life already aligned. Decisions arise cleanly. Misalignment is felt instantly. Correction happens without struggle. You no longer wait for signs because you are the reference point. This is why the world begins to feel simpler, not easier, simpler. Less negotiation, less resistance, less inner noise. You are not living faster. You are living truer. Beyond the window, nothing needs to be proven. Proof becomes unnecessary because your body already recognizes coherence. You stop explaining what you feel. Stop defending your choices. Stop narrating your evolution. Not because others cannot understand, but because explanation fragments your signal. Truth no longer needs witnesses. It only needs consistency. This is the phase where presence replaces identity. You are no longer someone becoming. You are someone inhabiting. Guidance does not disappear. It merges with perception. You are not being guided toward alignment. You are acting from alignment. Intuition does not speak. It orients. Reality does not challenge. It responds. This is sovereignty, stable presence inside intensity. And still, coherence must be maintained, not achieved through environment. This is why stable fields matter, spaces built on regulation, silence, and precision, not excitement. When your environment supports coherence, your signal stays readable. When your environment is noise, even a clear human becomes fragmented. Integration, seal activation. Type this exactly. I live from alignment without returning. As you write it, notice steadiness without searching. And now, with integration stable, the final task is simple but rare. Living as a coherent signal in a world that runs on urgency without letting urgency re-enter your field. The ebook, The Pleiadian Map of Personal Transmutation, a profound guide that reveals how to raise your frequency, purify old patterns, and activate your true multidimensional identity. This map teaches you how to move through the 7 Pleiadian phases of energetic transmutation, using practical techniques, realignment exercises, vibrational protocols, and consciousness expansion rituals that accelerate your spiritual evolution. Attention, limited edition. The link to get yours is in the first pinned comment. Now we complete the transmission with the most practical cosmic truth. After the window locks, your life becomes the practice. There is no next window to carry you. There is integration, sustained through daily posture. This is where many stumble, not because they fall into darkness, but because they underestimate how subtle urgency can be. Urgency returns wearing holy clothing. It returns as Shuming, as purpose, as I must do more, as I must fix everything, as I must wake everyone up. But the Pleiadians transmit. Urgency is noise. Noise collapses readability. And readability is the foundation of your new timeline. So what does it mean to live as the signal? It means you become the stable field that reality can respond to without distortion. You stop scattering your energy across 100 worries. You stop negotiating with what you already know. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop trying to be understood. Not because you become cold, but because coherence is sacred. In this stage, you learn a deeper discipline, clean timing. Not everything that is true requires immediate action. Some truths are meant to ripen before they become movement. You learn to wait without collapsing. You learn to act without forcing. You learn to speak without explaining. You learn to say no without guilt. These are not personality traits. These are coherence technologies. You also learn to process emotion without building identity around it. When you feel sadness, you do not become the story of sadness. When you feel tension, you do not label your whole life as broken. You feel, you breathe, you let it move, and you stay readable. The more you practice this, the faster reality begins responding. Not because you are manifesting harder, but because you are distorting less. And then something beautiful happens. Your life begins to instruct others without you trying. Your presence becomes a permission slip. People feel calmer near you. Conversations become simpler. Conflicts dissolve faster. Not because you preach, but because you regulate the field. That is what the Pleiadians call true leadership. Not influence through force, but influence through coherence. So if this transmission felt familiar, if it did not feel exaggerated, if it felt like your system recognized the tone before the words, then you already know the truth. You are not here to chase signs. You are here to become the stable signal that makes signs unnecessary. Final activation, integration. Seal. Type this exactly. I live from alignment without returning. Notice the steadiness. No search, no drama, only coherence. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light.